Hello, DM Geezer Jim here. We are working on the next part of our audiobook read through on Uncaged Faces of Sigil, second edition D&D Planescape centered book. Now, with Planescape popping around in 5th edition again, it's a really good time, I think, to look at one of the better non-player character books. As usual, we're going to go reading it word for word, line by line, go through the text as it's listed, and then at the end of the video talk about give you a little bit of my opinion, my feedbacks on how these characters can be useful within a Planescape or Sigil campaign. Thanks for hanging out. Let's get to the reading. Our next character up is Autochon the Bellringer. The minstrels of Sigil weave glamorous tales of the brave couriers who walk its streets carrying messages of love, commerce, and betrayal. These songs spark the minds of the children of the city who play at the role as well, delivering coded messages, dodging ambushes, and bursting into their secret headquarters in the nick of time. This tale is not one told by the bards, for it's true. There was once a courier named Autochon, a charming and handsome man who put other runners to shame, so diligent and fleet of foot was he. Ere long all in the ladies' ward asked that only Autochon deliver their messages. The ambitious young man saw this as a portent that he found his own courier service within the ward. This he did, and quickly he became known as one of the finest. Rich lords relied on the talkative man's silent couriers, runners carrying batons enchanted with magic mouths that gave their messages only to the proper recipient, and mages entrusted their mystical packages only to Autochon's couriers, magically bound as they were to their goods. I must have the foremost courier service in Sigil, Autochon said, and he very nearly did. But for the growing attacks on his workers that robbed him of his messages, customers, and oftentimes the couriers himself. When none could guarantee Autochon the protection he needed, all looked lost. That is until the Arcanalos Shemeshka the Marauder made her presence known. She suggested that Autochon meet with Noxana the Unwilling, a planar tiefling, female tiefling cleric of the Free League, at the Dread Temple of the Abyss. A place of last resort it was, but contracts with the fiends of the temple were always honored. Noxana the Unwilling is responsible for such contracts. In the shadow of the temple's bell tower, Autochon met with Noxana, and what a meeting it was. Noxana was drawn to the man's elegant face, his dark brown skin, his light green eyes, the brilliant ink of the dragon tattooed on his high cheekbone. As she traced with her fingers this faction symbol of the Free League, Autochon brushed her unruly raven hair off her face and found a similar golden symbol dangling from her earlobe. For a moment they said naught, then flew into negotiations, their excited words sparking off of each other. Autochon began each sentence with, "I must have," but Noxana the Unwilling was just as demanding in return. Eventually the contract, promising fiendish protection in exchange for free courier services, was signed in blood. But the two continued to meet in shadows. For Autochon, Noxana was not so unwilling. Unfortunately for the pair, a spy ferried word of their trysts to the temple's high priest, Noshtheroth of the Umber Scales, a planar tiefling cleric thief of the bleak cabal, chaotic evil in alignment. Enraged, Noshtheroth impaled the spy on the temple's bladed facade, there to hang and die as a raven slowly ate his flesh. Whether Noxana was the cherished daughter or the secret lover of the high priest was uncertain, but Noshtheroth swore that Autochon would pay for his dalliance. He condemned the human to the fate suffered by all those who betray the temple. Forevermore, no matter how long or no matter how far he might flee, Autochon would hear the endless maddening peals of the tower's bells of Baphomet. Autochon tried in vain, but could not drive the nose from his head, not with distance, not with magic, not with cloth stuffed into his ears. His comrades heard nothing, but the bells kept Autochon from sleeping and brought him to the edge of insanity within 3 days. And when he barely survived an attack by the dissonant demon of the bells, Autochon stumbled to the house of repute known as Fortune's Wheel, there to find Shemeshka the Marauder. "Please, good lady," cried the warrior, crumbling to the floor with his hands against the ears, "I must have your aid." Shemeshka observed him carefully, then nodded and pointed to her empty palm. Autochon desperately ripped a sack of coins from his belt, but she laughed and turned away. He would owe her much more. With a wave of her hand, Shemeshka's groomer guard strode forward, bearing a fine full suit of dull gray armor, special plate mail from the gray wastes. They dressed the sobbing man in the tight metal and slid the heavy helmet over his head. Shemeshka herself stepped forward to snap the visor shut. and as she did so, the ringing din in Autochon's head quieted to the level of bells tolling in the distance, the sound he would hear for the rest of his life, a life to be forever spent in armor. Autochon took a first awkward step into his new shell, and the armor made a peculiar sound, for to shield him from the temple's bells in its shimmering demon, the magical armor absorbed the fiendish sounds, but the flat gray mail could not contain it all. Instead of clanking as its new master moved, the armor jingled. The tavern fell completely silent, all eyes turning towards the delicate tinkling sound. Thus did Autochon receive his title, known ever after as the Bellringer. For that day forward, Autochon wore the full suit of armor at all hours, despite blistering heat or draining fatigue. Over time, his once tall and straight form bent crookedly under the weight of the metal. Many in Sigil thought he wore the armor to hide some monstrous disfigurement. They often gasped when Autochon lifted his visor for a quick bite of bread or breath of fresh air, revealing a striking, handsome face. In moments, he would wince at the increasing volume of the bells and slam the visor shut. Thus did Autochon's once common chants with his customers become infrequent whispers, his smiles as rare as precious stones. Often he said nothing at all, but could be heard cursing himself beneath his gray helmet. The tenacious man who once began every sentence with, "I must have," was reduced to the simple plaintive plea, "I must have silence." He grew intolerant and quick of temper, particularly of the couriers who enjoyed protection at his expense. Autochon began to treat them with bitterness, cutting out the tongues of those who refused to pay him a fee for the right to carry messages. This, of course, made it more quiet for the man and put a gruesome twist on the notion of silent couriers. Only one courier has ever refused to make such payment and kept her tongue, a woman child named Kylie, who quit in the middle of a delivery, stole the message, and left Autochon with a mess. Enraged, he meant to kill her, but Shemeshka the Marauder stepped in to stay his hand, insisting that he secretly protect Kylie instead. Autochon wondered if the Arcanoloth had not planned this ending for him from the start. And what now of Autochon the Bellringer? Alone, tortured, he devotes each hour to the betterment of his service. He must succeed. He must justify the temple's hideous contract with plentiful profits, much of which goes to Shemeshka as compensation for the armor. Autochon keeps to the silent halls of the Palace of the Jester, a little-used gathering ground for the rich and powerful of the ward, from which he manages his couriers. He prefers to keep his mind occupied the less to hear the distant bells, and so himself deals with those who come to hire messengers. If luck holds, a customer may catch a legendary glimpse of his face when he lifts his visor, offering a brief look at the man who once was. And that's Autochon's story. Quick Chant, he's a planar human, 12th level fighter, member of the Free League, who's neutral evil. He is typically found at the Palace of the Jester. Personality-wise, he's bitter, driven, but professional. Role-playing, Autochon hates noise and always whispers. He tries to ignore his jingling armor and any comments made on it by others. Because he's driven to succeed, he uses the hard sell on folks who come to hire a courier, even if it doesn't seem necessary. However, he treats all customers with respect. He's easily provoked and comes on strong immediately. He knows his skills will drop due to the weight of the armor if a battle lasts more than 5 rounds. He can be connected to Black Marion, Earmid, and Shemeshka the Marauder, and the aforementioned Kylie. So, reading is over. How is this story useful or helpful for us? Well, it shows you how infernal contracts can go. As a dungeon master, remember that you hold all the cards in an infernal bargain, whether they're dealing with Yugoloths, whether they're dealing with devils, whether they're dealing with demons. Your players are dealing with making deals with creatures that have been alive for, in some cases, longer than time has record. No matter what happens, your demons, your devils, your fiends are always going to have the upper hand in a negotiation, in a Faustian pact, if it will. This kind of shows the interplay between first and foremost, this reading kind of, as will a couple of the other ones, they're talking about some of the other touts. Tout is the Planescape name for couriers, for messengers. There's this wide web of information exchange and goods exchange that goes through the city that's dependent on hand delivery. That's a lot of ammunition, a lot of fodder for tons of different adventures and adventure hooks, some of which can draw in Autochon, others can't. Heck, you could use this as a driving point to really, do something big. What would Autochon be willing to do to free himself of this curse? And what is that going to cost you or your players when they cross Shemeshka the Marauder or the Church of the Temple of the Abyss? So when we read through these stories, we're going to continue going through the entire book. I'm going to read them as they are, but I want you as a dungeon master, as a D&D person, thinking about how these things can apply and how they're represented within the game world. Most of the stories are going to be similar to this, just kind of more narrative. Some are autobiographical, others are interview style, but they're all designed to give us a taste of life in Sigil, whether it's from the lowliest of the lowly or the highest of highs. All of these stories are to help us give the city life, give the city immersion, make our players understand that people live here, people of all kinds and all kinds of stuff, and how they interact with each other. Hey, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. Join us over on Twitch for a live stream chat if you'd ever want to. But above all, thanks for your time, man. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. And, I'd love to discuss some of these NPCs with you guys in the comments if you'd like. Thanks. We'll see you soon.